Hi everyone, and welcome to the Cinema Dash. I think you'll just notice that it's just me this episode. The reason is, Gabs and I are going to be starting a new series in an attempt to get more content out to you guys, and just because we felt like doing it. We actually have a couple of things in the works right now, but this is going to be the first thing that we're putting out. This series is going to be called One-Offs, where if either Gabs or myself sees a movie and the other one of us isn't there, we're just going to be giving our brief thoughts on the movie itself. So think of it as a Cinema Dash episode, just minus one Anthony. So this episode, I just saw Star Trek Beyond, and I just wanted to give my brief thoughts on it. Before I do that, I also wanted to give a little mini review, I guess, of sorts, of The Shallows. I actually saw The Shallows as well, but I really don't have that much to say about it, so instead of making a long-winded episode, I guess I would just give my brief thoughts before I talk about Star Trek. The Shallows was a pretty okay movie, I guess. It's something that you'd put on if there's like a rainy day and you want to get some cheap thrills, honestly. Some pretty tense moments throughout the movie. Blake Lively was pretty good. I dug her. A lot of the supporting cast is pretty forgettable when there was supporting cast. This is mostly just Blake Lively versus the shark the entire movie. Some pretty decent cinematography. There's a lot of stuff that in the movie that really kind of like subverted genre tropes, I guess, in a sense. Again, it wasn't the best movie because a lot of things were really over the top, and I guess I would come to expect that considering the director's previous work. He did Non-Stop and Run All Night, both featuring Liam Neeson, and he's a pretty over the top director, but that's not to say he's a bad director. I thought the direction of this movie was pretty solid, actually. But there was a couple of over the top sort of borderline action sequences in this movie that I really felt didn't really mesh well with what the movie was trying to convey. Other than that, again, Blake Lively was pretty good. She really sold her performance. She was actually an intelligent character, which I really appreciated. She wasn't just like some dimwit she wasn't the type of character in a horror movie that's like, all right guys, let's split up. She actually like knew what she was doing. And I really appreciated the fact that was a thing, and so kudos to the writers on that. Overall, aside from one really cool sequence, the movie is just pretty okay. I'd say it's the best shark movie since Jaws, but that's not really saying much because it's the only shark movie since Jaws that's not Sharknado or Megalodon versus giant octopus versus tarantula fire volcano man. I don't know, but it's a pretty solid movie. I wouldn't see it in theaters. I would definitely say it's worth a rent though. I would give it probably a 6 out of 10. Okay, so now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about Star Trek. Star Trek has always been a mixed bag with me. I was always more of a Star Wars fan, as I've mentioned on the show multiple times, pretty much every episode at this point. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. It's my favorite piece of media ever to be created. So it's always been near and dear to my heart throughout my childhood, my teenage years, and so far my adult life. And I have to say, Star Trek has never really been huge. It had a huge impact on me. I mean, I watched the original series, all of it. I haven't watched any of the new ones, new ones being newer ones, like with Patrick Stewart and stuff. I haven't watched any of those. But I do appreciate them for what they are. I know they're a really good TV series, and I've seen a couple of clips from episodes from them, and I have to say I really did enjoy what I saw. So maybe I'll watch them, if I ever get the time to. But Star Trek has never really had a massive place in my heart while growing up. And I loved the first two of this new original rebooted trilogy, Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness. I really dug those. So, and that's mostly because I really like J.J. Abrams. He's in like my top 5 favorite directors, and I really do like what he does with sci-fi properties and stuff like that, especially when he's rebooting a saga or when he's rebooting a property. like with the most recent Star Wars, in which I loved. And he's no stranger to reboots, like with this new Star Trek property that he is rebooting. I love the first one. I would go so far as to say it's probably in like my top 20 favorite movies. And I really like what he did with the casting. I thought Chris Pine was a great James T. Kirk. I thought Zachary Quinto was a fantastic Spock. I really like Karl Urban as Bones. Simon Pegg as Scotty. Really great casting all around so far, and the writing was pretty good too. I just always considered it a tier above like your standard popcorn action flick. I thought it had a lot of heart. And I would say the same with Star Trek Into Darkness. Very good casting, very good writing, great action sequences, CGI and stuff like that. So I've always been a pretty solid, a pretty involved fan of these two movies. So when Star Trek 3 got announced and seeing that J.J. Abrams wasn't returning, I was a little hesitant because he already had such an established style for these movies. I was trying to think of what director could kind of replicate that style, or not so much replicate, but also try to bring something new to the franchise while retaining J.J. Abrams' original vision for the reboots of the series. So when they announced Justin Lin was directing it, I was like, okay, because he mostly did Fast and Furious, over the top popcorn, turn off your brain for like an hour and a half type movies, and seeing him really show an interest in this property kind of perked up my spirits a little bit, because he was enthusiastic, and he's not a bad director by any means. So maybe it was going to be in good hands. So I have to say I really enjoyed this movie. I really did. It's probably, though, my least favorite out of the trilogy so far, because I know there's going to be a fourth one. There's a fourth one coming. But it's my least favorite, but that's not really saying much because I love the first two, and I really, really liked this one. Some really good things about it. I thought the writing was fantastic. Simon Pegg took over co-writing duties on this movie, and I thought he did a fantastic job really fleshing out these already very well-established characters. I really, really enjoyed the chemistry in between all of these characters. Not that we haven't seen them before in the past two movies, but I thought he really, really did a great job of making these characters feel like they've been spending 3 years together on board a ship in the vastness of deep space. I really kudos to them on that. It was very good writing throughout the movie. This movie kind of caught me off guard for a little bit, because for the past two movies we've been exploring Spock and James T. Kirk's relationship and their chemistry together as like best friends, and sometimes frenemies. Let's throw that term out there for a second. But in this movie we get to see a lot more Bones, which is great because he's been my favorite character of the reboots so far. But we get to see a lot of relationships being explored with Bones and the rest of the crew, like with James T. Kirk, most notably James T. Kirk and Spock, with their relationships. And it was really cool seeing Spock and Bones bond together, because they're two very intelligent men just playing off each other with nice quips and jokes and stuff like that. It was really, really cool to see, and especially with such a great script, these actors are really, Karl Urban and Zachary Quinto, really get into their roles and can really convince you that they are friends, really. It was really, really cool to see with that. And speaking of all these actors, I thought there wasn't a single bad performance in this movie at all, actually. Chris Pine again kills it as Kirk. Zachary Quinto kills it as Spock. Karl Urban's great as Bones. Zoe Saldana, while she did get a lot less screen time in this movie, she still was very good in the scenes that she was in. And Idris Elba as Krall the villain, he was pretty good throughout the movie. He wasn't what I really enjoyed about Krall was that he wasn't a sort of mustache twirling villain that we see in a lot of modern action movies nowadays. He actually had motivations and stuff like that behind him, and a reason to want to kill the crew of the Enterprise and the Galactic Federation in general. I'm not going to go into spoilers on that, just in case anybody wants to see this movie, which I really recommend you do. But yeah, he actually had some motivations, very well established motivations throughout this movie. So I thought that was really great. The CGI and the action sequences were top notch as always. But one problem I do have with the movie is that the action sequences are a little bit over the top, Fast and Furious over the top kind of, and which is kind of understandable because Justin Lin is hot off directing, I think, the most recent Fast and Furious, either him or James Wan. I don't recall who directed that movie, but even so, he has directed very over-the-top action sequences within that film saga, and these over-the-top action sequences don't really translate well to Star Trek. I know a lot of fans express the fact that Star Trek is basically Star Wars now, and I can definitely agree with that criticism. This movie did have a very Star Wars vibe to it, even coming down to some of the quotes in the movies as well. I'm not going to give any spoilers, see if you can decipher those for yourself, but there were a lot of Star Wars references and even quotes in this movie that really caught me off guard for a second. I didn't really have a problem with it because it worked in the context of the movie, but it was just a little disconcerting to see such this property taking on its essentially rival property and injecting some of its trademark things within this saga. But other than that, the action I thought again was a little bit over the top, but not terrible. I really did enjoy the action. And aside from the action, the writing, the characters. With the characters, I also forgot to mention that this new girl that they brought in, Sophia. I forgot the actress's name is slipping from me right now, but her character name is Johara, I think, or Jala, something like that. But she was great in the movie. I really liked how she was a strong female character. I really appreciated the fact that the writers and the director and the actress herself made a concerted effort to make her a very likable yet badass character. She wasn't overly sexualized. She wasn't just eye candy for the audience to oogle at. She actually served a purpose, and she had a great backstory, and she was really cool in every scene that she was in. I thought that she delivered one of the best performances in the movie as well. She was very stakes were implemented in the movie, and she understood how high these stakes were and really conveyed the fact that they were, again, very, very high. So I thought that she did a very good job at conveying those stakes, as I repeat myself 35 times. Other than that, there wasn't really much bad about this movie, I would say. It did have a little bit of problems, but nothing that would really make this an unworthy experience to see. The first, I would say, act of the movie, the first 30 minutes of the movie is basically all set up, and it's not really that interesting. It's not bad per se. There's some really cool editing techniques. There's some great camera work in it. There are great performances as usual. But it really failed to kind of grasp me and really get me into this whole situation. But as the movie progressed, and once they, crash land on this planet, everything really just gets progressively better and better and better from there. So I really appreciate the fact that it did that instead of just being set up throughout the entire movie in exposition. So yeah, the first 30 minutes really not that interesting. Mostly setup, exposition, stuff like that. But another problem I had with the movie was that it felt like there wasn't really any clear indicator of how the acts were separated. I would say, the movie felt like it could have ended really at any point, except throughout the. It really felt like it could have ended at any point, which is a little weird, I would say. A lot of the action sequences felt like it was the last action sequence, if you get my drift. But while it makes for a more epic action sequence in a plot sense, it really kind of threw me off guard a little bit. But that's really mostly a nitpick on my end. It didn't really take me out of the movie. It just made me think the movie was going to end. And while another little issue that I have with the movie is while I praised Idris Elba for his performance as Krall and stuff like that. I felt like near the end when he finally reveals his motivations, it got a little stupid, I would say, because he got turned into this alien, and it doesn't really explain how he got turned into this alien. And I'm gonna put a spoiler tag. I didn't mean to spoil it, but whatever. But he turns into this alien, and it doesn't really explain how he turns into this alien. And he crash lands on this planet, and he stays there for like 300 million years or whatever, and he can't die. And he thinks the Federation abandoned him and stuff like that, which I get is a valid motivation for not liking the Federation. But his ends don't justify the means. He wants to completely obliterate an entire planet-sized space station with like billions of people living on it, and all because the Federation left him on this planet and his crew for like a couple of centuries. The ends really don't justify the means there. You know, take billions of lives for 300 years lost. It doesn't really add up that much. But and then when he starts to revert back to his human form, he like looks at himself in the mirror and has like this moment of self-reflection, and then immediately goes back to trying to kill everybody. It's like, why was that moment even there? Like, if he's starting to quote unquote regain his humanity, why would he want to destroy it again? You know, it's what he wanted. His humanity is what he wanted. So I don't know, I was a little iffy on that one. But other than that, there really wasn't much else about the movie that I found bad. I would actually like to put one scene from this movie as my contender for the best movie scene of 2016 so far. I'm not going to spoil what it is, even though I spoiled something before, but I'm just going to put a spoiler tag on it anyway. I'm not going to spoil what it is because me describing it won't do it justice. It's near the end of the movie, and it's absolutely and utterly fantastic. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say about Star Trek Beyond. I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. I thought it was a really cool, a really good movie, a really cool movie. Hit all the right notes where it needed to hit all the right notes, and it's not a very intellectual movie as opposed to what some people believe, but it's definitely not a turn your brain off and sit there for an hour and a half type movie. Overall, I think it's a very good movie. Definitely recommend seeing it in theaters. So yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.